Hey, welcome to More Cake, Yes Ma'am, Badass Herbal Art. I'm Jelena, and this is my fluffy, smooth buttercream recipe. So the shortening that I'm going to be using for this recipe, I get from Walmart. It's a high ratio shortening, and you want to make sure you grab the one with the fried chicken on the front of it. I got this recipe from a friend, and I've altered it for my cakes to better for myself. And yeah, and I know it's worked really well for others in the past, and it works really well for me. The recipe I have is going to be for an entire 8-inch cake that's 6 inches high, or you can also cover a 6-inch cake 6 inches high and still have buttercream left over. It is a lot of cake that I use. They're pretty tall, so it's a lot of buttercream that I need. And if you don't need that much buttercream, I would say just half this recipe. Also, you'll notice that I'm not adding any butter. And the reason for that is because I don't put butter in my buttercream, and I normally call this American Crusted Buttercream Hold the Butter. Haha, cute, right? So yeah, but if you can add butter to this recipe if you'd like, I would add in moderation depending on what texture you're looking for. I would suggest if you're going to do this same recipe and then just want to add some butter to it, I would add maybe a stick and a half of real butter to this, also of unsalted butter. I prefer to use unsalted because I like to control my salt intake in my recipes. Now you can see I have a tub full of powdered sugar, and I pre-sift all of my powdered sugar before I put them in my containers. So I suggest that you sift your powdered sugar also, so that way it won't have any lumps in it when you are mixing your shortening and your powdered sugar together. If you noticed, I dug like a little bit of a well down there because I don't want the powdered sugar to be on top of the shortening too much, because when it starts to mix, it'll fly like really everywhere. This way it won't fly so much around and won't be like a powdery mess. Use a stand mixer if you can, because it is a lot of man arm power that you need to mix this. You're going to get some real muscles if you're going to use a hand mixer. So this stand mixer here I'm using, and I'm also using the whisk attachment. And a whisk attachment, it's much better for when you want a fluffy consistency in your buttercream, and it mixes so much better than a paddle attachment does. The liquid I'm using is just bottled water, but you can actually really use any liquid you prefer, down to fruit punch if you want to, milk, eggnog, anything, coffee, any sort of liquid. And what the liquid does, it not only flavors, I'm doing a vanilla basic buttercream, so it's not like I needed anything else, but it flavors it, and it also breaks down your buttercream to get more softer and more smoother. Okay, so I add a little bit at a time, and you don't want to add too much, because when you add too much, you're going to have a muddy mess. Okay, you don't want that. You want this buttercream to make sure it still has nice stiff peaks when you're done with it. The way that I mix my buttercream is I like to add everything in moderation. So I like to add my shortening and then my entire tub of shortening, but then everything else in smaller amounts. So my powdered sugar, half a cup at a time, or a cup at a time, excuse me, and then some water, like a teaspoon at a time or a tablespoon at a time, just really depending. And then also my extract. So everything is in moderation. And also in between the mixing and the adding, I make sure I scrape down the sides. You want to make sure you scrape down the sides, because if you miss scraping down the sides, then you're going to be left with powdered sugar sitting there on top of your buttercream, and that's never fun. You don't want your buttercream to be tasting powdery whatsoever. After I've added all my ingredients, besides my vanilla so far, I want to make sure the consistency is correct to make sure it's nice and soft and fluffy. You saw how smooth that is. There's no bumps in that. And then also that how the taste is, because I want to make sure that I'm not tasting the back taste of the shortening and it's nice and sweet. And then I add my vanilla. So that tells me that my buttercream is just about ready if I don't taste that back taste. And this is the Madagascar bourbon vanilla that I use, and it is amazing. I suggest everybody, I mean, not this one if you can't get it, but I suggest everybody get a good vanilla extract for any recipe that you're doing. If it's a cake, if it's a buttercream, if it's cupcakes, whatever you're using it for, coffee, I suggest you get this. It is so delicious and it smells so amazing. You can actually smell the bourbon in it, but it's just, it makes your buttercream taste so delicious. So I'm adding the last of my powdered sugar, and then I'm gonna let that mix, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add my vanilla extract to it as well. Now this recipe that I'm showing you how to use, it's just a basic, simple recipe for anybody to be able to use, but it also could be manipulated. I use this recipe also when I want to make chocolate buttercream, and I also use it when I want to make cream cheese buttercream. And those will be future tutorials coming, and if you're watching this in the future, then I might already have those tutorials done for you. So go ahead and just double check on my YouTube to see if it's done. So yeah, so I use this basic recipe for all of those. Even if I wanted to make lemon buttercream, this is just the beginning starting of it. So be sure to just test out things starting with this recipe. You don't have to use vanilla extract. You can use a different type of extract. And like I said, you don't have to use water. You can actually use milk. You can use fruit punch. You can use butterscotch juice, you know, anything. You can, I would not use beer, but I don't know how that would taste. But coffee, I bet coffee in this would be so divine and delicious, especially when you're making chocolate buttercream. You also want to make sure you don't overmix. Once you don't see any more powdered sugar lumps, you've scraped your sides, all your liquid is incorporated very good, and you give it a nice taste test. And the taste test is you put it on a spoon, you make sure, one, it tastes delicious, look how smooth that is, and two, that it's nice and smooth when you comb through it the way that I just did. So it's really simple and easy to create, really simple and easy to manipulate. I hope you enjoy this and appreciate it, and I appreciate all of you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and like this YouTube video. Peace. Hey, you like this tutorial and maybe all the other ones on my YouTube channel? You should definitely check out my Patreon. There's some badass edible art over there that I do. You can become a Patreon for just as little as $12 a month. And yeah, you get access to a lot of good stuff. So check it out. Thanks so much. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure you're following me on Instagram to see all the things that I'm doing at yes_ma'am_sweets. And if you're interested in any of my apparel, because it's purely badass, follow me at morecakeym. Bye.